Well, thanks again for tuning into my YouTube channel. Now, in our last video we looked at Brian Allardyce's 1981 495 KTM. So I thought in this particular video we should take another look at one of Brian's other machines, his 1982 430CR Husqvarna. Now, Brian's aim was to build this bike as a winter project, although this machine was not really a bike at all originally, and Brian's intention was to build this machine using two donor bikes. Now, the first bike he would use would be this 1982 430CR Enduro bike. Now, this bike would be the engine for his new project. He would take the engine out of this bike and use it as the motor for his new project. And this rather sad and battered looking 1982 250 would supply the frame for Brian's brand new machine. Now, of course, the first thing that was done was both the bikes were stripped completely to inspect them for any signs of damage or wear. There were a few cracks that required welding on the frame, although once that was completed it was then sent for blasting and painting. And as you can see in this first clip, the bike doesn't look too shabby at all. I'll get down to the nitty-gritty of just exactly what was changed on this bike to complete the build. Although these Husqvarna forks originally came off the 250 bike, these were completely stripped, revalved, and new seal blocks and new oil was fitted. Now, just a few minor welding repairs were required to the frame prior to it going for sandblasting and painting. Now, of course, that's the original brake lever on this bike, although the footrests were upgraded items. Now, the original exhaust was pretty much scrapped for the new bike, so Brian purchased a replacement complete with tailpipe from those guys at HVA Factory, the classic Twinshock Husqvarna parts suppliers. Now, the front and rear wheels for the new bike were also scrapped, so Brian opted for a pair of these lovely XL rims. Now, the front and rear brake hubs were also stripped and refurbished and then refitted back to the bike. Now, as far as the motor goes, it received the full strip down and renovation works, and received a new crank, big end, and a new piston kit and rebore, which was all completed at Dunfermline Motorcycles. Now, of course, naturally, once the engine was rebuilt, it was coated in a lovely black satin high temperature paint. Of course, many of the smaller items on the bike were renewed, including this chain guide roller. Now, the business end of the drivetrain, new sprockets, as you can see, new brakes, were all brand new items fitted to this bike. Now, the original shocks were stripped and then rebuilt with new seal blocks, new oil, and regassed, and this was all done at Dunfermline Motorcycles. And as you can see, once the shocks were repainted, they looked every bit as good as new. And I must say, the engine looks lovely with that new satin black high temperature paint. Now, of course, this is not the original carburetor for this bike. I think the older one was substituted for this more modern Mikuni. Now, when Brian first fitted the handlebars to the new bike, He thought they were a bit high for his 6 foot plus stature, so he's substituting a new set of shorter bar mounts to combat that problem. And I must admit, the bike looks absolutely superb when I took these video shots in the lovely June sunshine. Now, as the same as the front hub, the rear hub received the full strip down and renovation treatment. Now, the new spokes that were laced onto these brand new XL rims, these were all done locally by a company called Respoke Wheel Building, who are actually in Windygates in Fife, not far from where Brian lives. Now, the original seat base was used for the new bike. It received a new foam and a new seat cover before it was then refitted. Now, this is the new tailpipe which was purchased from HVA factory in Newton Abbot in the UK. Brian received a brand new exhaust system for this bike, a complete new system along with this tailpipe. And of course there's a superb brap comes out of that tailpipe, which we'll hear just shortly. Of course, this bike received a brand new set of plastics, which were also supplied by those guys at HVA, as was of course this lovely Husqvarna front exhaust pipe. Now, the original levers and cables from the old 430 bike were reused because they were almost like brand new. Now, the original fuel tank was quite good internally, although it did take Brian some time to remove the old paint before it was then sent to Crow Coach Building for preparation and repainting. Now, between the strip down of the two donor bikes and the rebuild of this lovely machine that you now see here, it took Brian approximately 5 months to complete. But if you'd like to know more details about the build of this bike, then just check out issue number 69 of the VMX magazine. Now, of course, that gear shifter was one of the brand new items that Brian had to purchase for this restoration. Now, these are quite expensive items. I did ask Brian actually how much it cost, but he refused to comment. Now, these are the original Madeira levers of the old 430 donor bike. So Brian just gave them a clean up and refitted them to this brand new project. Well, that just about completes the rebuild of Brian's 1982 430CR Husqvarna. So we've seen the build of the bike, so let's just have a listen to what it sounds like.